Before last year, I didn't know that I had anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
I just kind of thought that kind of gnawing feeling was always just, I don't know. I didn't know what it was, but I know that I was always questing to try to figure out how to fill it, right? How to ease it. And I didn't understand depression. If it wasn't for Duke, first and foremost, I would.
Welcome to Intrepid Storytelling, where the brave, the courageous, the dauntless, and the resolutely fearless share their journeys of hope, grit, and transformation. These are the voices of the valiant, those who dare to rise, to dream, and to tell their truth out loud. Because every story has the power to inspire, and yours just might change the world. I'm your host, Deanna Powell. I am so excited to introduce today a very special guest and someone who has inspired me. And we've actually never met in person until today, but I'm very excited about this conversation because I think that Jacob Ivan Schmitt is going to be someone who really changes the world for the better. And I've seen that you've already done that. You've already touched my heart in just the very little that I know about your story. And I wanted to invite you because I want to know more about your story. And I think your story needs to get out to the world. So Jacob Ivan Schmitt is the founder and is a part of a team at Just Us Solutions. Yes, and it is a solution, justice. But Just Us is a play on words because justice is the goal.
Well, that's the concept. That's the theory. But in reality, justice isn't a system. Justice is us. It's a community. It's humans. It's people.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And so we can get into some of the details because I think it's important to get that message out. But the first question I usually ask is, why do you want to tell your story?
Through the course of my life, there were all these different places where somebody said something to me, or I heard something, or I observed, or even somebody did something to me, / for me. The takeaways were profound, maybe not at that time, right? I had to grow into whatever the understanding or awareness needed to be or would be in order for that to actually, really grow. And so for me, I guess I just want people who either are suffering, probably people who are suffering the most, it would be my focus, but also people who have healed and people who maybe never had to heal from things and experiences like I did, to hopefully get some sort of an inspiration or a raised awareness around something. Probably my greatest hope is that people in the community, in our community, who don't have any exposure to the criminal legal system and the carceral space, that maybe it will, hearing my story or parts of it, may actually open their mind and their heart so that they see the humanity behind the experience and the poor decisions, etc.
Right. Because you don't grow up as a little child thinking, okay, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison, right? No, there's a little boy in there or a little girl in there that may have been impacted by different things, all different kinds of things that put them in prison. But now to be treated like an animal while you're in there, I mean, I can even speak from experience in my very short time, 90 days in the Issaquah City Jail for the DUI that actually got me sober. But I just thought, I never want to experience this again because you feel like a caged animal and the humanity is stripped away from you. And I think they kind of do that on purpose, but you can get more into sort of your experience as well. But
I do want to just interrupt you and say,
please.
I guess for me, and I'm not pushing back, but I would just say that, one of the beautiful things, and sometimes, it actually manifests in an ugly way about us as people, as humans, is our individuality. And we don't have to have the same actual experience to have the same result. Something that might make me laugh might make you cry, right?
Yeah.
Vice versa. I just want to say that 90 days is not insignificant. 90 days, particularly for someone who hasn't been sort of conditioned for the space and for the experience, was almost certainly more traumatizing than any 5-year prison term I served, because by the time I went to prison, I had been conditioned for that space. I want to acknowledge you and say, listen, never minimize it, because I personally can imagine how traumatic and cataclysmic that it was.
It was.
I am
for
glad
me.
that you used it as an impetus to heal.
I feel seen right now. I
Yeah.
really do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Gosh, it's okay. I knew this conversation was going to go, like be very deep and connecting, but I really appreciate that because, yes, it was traumatic and it did its job, if you will, in teaching me the lesson I needed to learn about why I never want to go back. And it was, the experience I had there did impact my decision on never drinking again. It was just one of those reasons why I never wanted to drink again. Now, that was one of the first reasons, but then as you get sober, as you know, probably, all the reasons start coming. Well, now I'm experiencing this. I could never have that if I wasn't sober. And now this. And so these are, the reasons compact.
Right, exactly. You know what I say, I kind of liken it to a bank account, right?
Yeah, okay.
When you don't have any money in the bank, you don't really care. You don't have much to lose. Right? Nobody except for, what was the movie, Trading Places, I think it was. Like nobody just goes and, or maybe it was like Coming to America, where they just gave all the cash to you don't just go give $50,000 if that's all you have in cash away to a stranger.
Right.
And so for me, if you've only got, basically $100 in that bank account, it's a lot easier maybe to slide up to that bar and get something that's going to induce a peace, and maybe even dull the awareness around the, just how dire things otherwise can be. But what I hear from you saying right now is that you started discovering all of these things that you started putting into your life bank. And all of these things, once they had value to you, once you understood the value of them, you weren't willing to ever give them away. And I think that's an important thing, because especially for people who are in confinement, like, we're not giving them things to put into their life bank.
Yeah.
When you take a 22-year-old kid and you give him 58 years, actually, I'll use a real example. You take a 22-year-old, 20 or 22-year-old kid and give him 32 years because he brandished a baseball bat at somebody, didn't hit them, nothing.
Yeah.
But because he was from Yakima and because he was brown, and because he was a member of a gang, they gave him, I believe it was 32 years, 28 or 32 years. And when you take that young man, that child, essentially, right? Because we know the male brain doesn't develop fully until it's 25 at best, right? And there are things that cause arrested development, different traumas. The carceral space, it creates an arrested development. Like, your body's mature, but your mind remains where it was. You have to really force the maturation process.
Yeah.
So when you take this person, who I do know, and is a real example, and you put him into prison where he's only going to get 10% off of this extraordinary sentence, is it realistic to expect him, for instance, to not get high, not to know that this little speck of something will give him escape from all of this and make it all feel okay? And I get a little bit nauseous when I say this, because, like, that is one of the most unrealistic expectations that we could ever place upon somebody. And, our system, do you know who Philip Zimbardo is?
No.
You ever heard of the Stanford prison experiment?
No.
So in the 70s, they did this thing at Stanford where they created a mock prison, and they used random people to be guards and to be prisoners. Okay. And they actually had to shut it down early because of the way that things were devolving, like this almost instantaneous division between the guards and the prisoners. And then even sort of the abuses from the guards. Philip Zimbardo, I believe he's the head of some department at Stanford, and he wrote a book called the Lucifer Effect, because he testified in behalf of one of the sergeants from, remember Abu Ghraib?
No.
Oh yeah, so
I don't know so
Abu
many
Ghraib
things.
was the
I'm fascinated.
it was one of our detainee camps for people from the Middle East, and they were on the graveyard shift, and they got charged, criminally charged, because of things that they were doing and had done. And Philip Zimbardo, he testified actually in behalf of the sergeant, who everybody said, like, gosh, he is just such a kind person. But it's a thing that happens. And just like there in Abu Ghraib, where they were positioning the detainees like in sexually suggestive positions and taking pictures and tormenting them by having dogs near them and stuff, right?
Is this in the mock prison?
No. This was in real.
In real prison.
Abu
Okay.
Ghraib was a real detainee camp.
Okay.
You know, that de-individuation, that exact same stuff is what was happening at Stanford Prison Experiment. And I started all of that to say, first of all, it's fascinating. I'm going to send you the book.
Yeah.
Don't picker with me because I see you have a ton of books. So I know that you have a really you have a hunger.
Yeah.
But Philip Zimbardo says in there, he says, they treat people like they're a bad apple. And in reality, it's a bad barrel. It's a bad barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And so for most people who go through any exposure to the carceral space, they do not see the person. They don't see that. They see the process. And when you take this young man, this not fully developed man, and you basically strip life from him with anything that he can imagine to see, right? Because he's serving twice again as long, and half again as long in prison as he's been alive, right? 150% more than his life at that time, almost. There's no way for him to how do you develop healthy thinking? How do you maintain healthy goals, right? And they're not giving people either the space and the tools to do that, nor are they giving people something to put in the life bank. So
just one experience in there, one alone, that is having to be hyper vigilant and always on guard for what might be happening behind your back. That alone, the cortisol in your brain, is stunting your growth and stunting your overall human experience. So, and that doesn't even count for what's your food intake in there and all the other crap that happens in there. Yeah, it's just, So when I say you're treated like an animal, you could basically eating dog food in there.
Well, actually, it's funny because I have a friend, Michaela Ellis Romero, giving her a shout out. She's in the neuroscience department at the University of Washington. She's absolutely brilliant. As an undergrad, she actually had graduate students as her assistant. So, and she got, I don't know what it is, which doesn't mean that I don't, applaud her for it, but she got like some really hard to get scholarship or something to get into this. And so she's doing studies on the impact of isolation on using bees.
Oh, huh.
I'm actually, so I spent 5 years in the hole here in Washington in the 90s. Something I'll maybe touch on here in a bit because it was very impactful for the course of my life. And I'm actually unable to sit through the presentation because it, and my now having
probably have a visceral reaction.
I do. I definitely do.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this because as part of the presentation, she gives examples of the laws surrounding how octopi have to be treated when they're in captivity and the way that their tanks have to be cleaned. And that if the stuff doesn't happen correctly, that they'll literally start smashing themselves against the, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Just saying that literally was my experience in there. I imagined how fast do I have to run against that brick wall to end it. That was my lowest point. And that's why I knew I could never go back there. No, never will.
But I appreciate that you journey there in your mind to share with us because that's one of the things,
I can imagine an octopus just
right. And so the laws surrounding the treatment of octopi in Washington State are so strict and so protective. But we don't have anything that resembles that for people. And I get the last time I was sitting there and I was listening to this, I was getting so angry because on November 30th, it's been kept pretty hush hush. I was going to make a really big deal about it, but somebody that I'm close to in the Department of Corrections said, listen, Jacob, we really are taking this seriously. But on November the 30th of last year, 2 officers at the Monroe Correctional Complex, Peck, and I can't remember the other guy's name, I'd have to look it up, assaulted a person in the mental health unit who was handcuffed, returning him to his cell. And yes, apparently they were having a negative exchange. Imagine that with a person who has probably untreated mental health problems, who's being housed in the hole, right?
Right.
And when they got to the cell, the guy churned and Peck punched him, knocked him to the ground, slammed him onto the ground by his hair, onto his face. And both officers began punching him and kicking him. And they've got it on video. But interestingly, the Snohomish County Prosecutor's Office still has not filed charges. So I say this to say that this is not something new. Statistically, just like, hey, I got caught for robbing 3 banks. How many robberies do you think I've probably got away with, right? Statistically, we know that every instance is not captured, right?
Yeah.
The chances that neither one of those officers have never abused their position is almost like it's not even like, I would bet a whole lot that they have.
Oh, more than 50%, I would say.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
100. Oh, absolutely. Just because of the statistics of it, the unlikelihood, and then the way that they did it together so cohesively, right?
Yeah. And
so
then they have each other's backs.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I bring that up to say that, like, that's not new. In the 90s, that's how it was in IMU. And they didn't do that to some of us, but if it was one of the weaker sort of, kind of just sort of hanging on to the tailgate of the social construct, young people or whatever, they would, there was a crew up there, Clallam Bay and IMU, and on Sunday mornings, they would sneak in and they would get the cell door open, they'd run in and clobber on them. And
can you tell, because I sorry for my ignorance, but
no worries.
IMU.
So IMU is intensive management unit.
Okay.
So in the 90s, we only had 3 of them here in Washington. Basically, they're maximum custody units.
Okay.
We now have multiples. We have one at Monroe. There's one at Stafford Creek. I think so there's 5 of them now instead of 3.
I really want to ask, like, how did you grow up? I know that you have some things that happened in your life as a young child and as you grew up. As much as you feel comfortable and and if you feel like your story could help others not feel alone and maybe even be inspired by what you've been through, please share.
I will.
So how did you grow up?
Well, a couple of things. Just want to. So I didn't actually really kind of, I guess, introduce myself.
Oh yes, please
and I want
do.
to do that, but I also want to say, and again, this isn't pushing back. This may be seeking at least a better expression for what I want.
Of course.
See, I don't want to change the world. I just want to leave the world better than it found me. I used
Which
to want to
in
take
turn will change it.
Yes,
You
I
know
used to
that,
want
right?
to take over the
It's a
world.
ripple effect.
But when you want to take over the world, honestly, it's because you're in survival mode, and the only way that you feel safe is if you're in control. And it's that hunt. So, like you said, I have a company called Just Us Solutions. I always get asked, like, so what do you guys do? And the simple truth is, whatever, anything. Everything. Turns out I'm better at the law than I was at breaking the law. And I
know you're going to tell us how you got that way.
Well, I got that way in desperation because when I went back to prison in 2013 after a bank robbery, I took a plea agreement for a 30-year sentence to avoid a life sentence that I never faced. I only faced 57 to 75 months. And I stopped the court twice before I entered my plea. It's in the transcripts, to speak to my attorney, who both times he refused to bring up the question. And of course, he was failing because at the very least, he should have returned to the prosecutor because he could have negotiated from a stronger position. But I got into the law library with really of course, I had like some very, very basic understandings of the law, but the truth is, like, even those things are skewed, and because I was picking them up from other people instead of actually
going to the books.
Getting my fingers on the pulse of the real heartbeat.
Yeah.
And in 15 minutes, I realized that he had made an extraordinary mistake. And so I decided that, I appealed and made one of my greatest friendships, an attorney named Jody Backlund. I don't know how I could have made it through my 9 years. I believe, one of the first client that she genuinely became friends with. And, listen, I'd run into hell and try to stab the devil with an icicle for her and wouldn't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
And then also Jeff Ellis, who is a pretty well-known attorney who really, he's pioneered so much in the collateral attack space here in Washington. He took my case for free. Well, I gave him $500. Like, in 9 years, that's all I had. And today, we're genuinely friends and colleagues. And
I think you've locked arms, probably, haven't you? In a way.
Oh yeah. Listen,
that relationship has given him dividends on whatever that $500 would have.
And that is absolutely what he says.
You guys are a team.
Yeah. Well, actually, so we have like DC comic book hero names. He's of course Batman. I'm Robin. And all I have to say about that is I understand Robin looks good in tights. I actually haven't checked them out yet. But for all the sports fans out there, I'll be setting up my OnlyFans page where I try on tights. Keep your eye out.
That's hilarious.
Money will go to a good cause. So So I got out of prison and I set up Just Us Solutions. And, substantively, what we work to do is develop strategies and even implement them to help improve access to support services. When you hear that somebody dies of dehydration stranded in the Saharan desert, you're like, oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But when you hear that somebody dies of dehydration in a warehouse in New Jersey where there's 10 million bottles of water, you're like, well, how did that happen? Well, if you can't access them, you're going to suffer. And when people leave prison and they get their packet of medical papers, like they don't know what to do with this. We don't even release people from prison with a smartphone. Not even just a cheap $30 smartphone. And you and I know you cannot do anything in our society without being able to send an email.
Right.
There's nothing that you can do.
You can't go on job interviews. They can't call you back to say you're hired. Like nothing.
It's one of the most ridiculous things. And for $70, like a $35 smartphone and a plan, hell, we could probably get phones donated from some of the larger companies and stuff. Yes. And even agencies when they upgrade to their next, whatever higher class of phone that they use, right? But it's atrocious. So for us, my team and I, we just really we want to help people. We do help people. Like that is what we do. And I'm very proud to say that 100% of the people that Just Us Solutions has put their hands on since we've been operating as they've returned to the community, 100% of them are in the community today. Yeah. There's been no recidivism. And that's because we offer a very different style of support.
You are restoring dignity to people who probably felt like they have never been respected or even deserved the respect of dignity before. And, in my volunteering experience, I'm going to shout out some people too. Christine Moreland, if you've never met her.
Okay, wait, I haven't met her, but we're on social media my first year out.
Oh, you have to meet her.
I kind of, adopted one of her people's families for Christmas. I bought all the kids' toys and stuff.
So
I actually just messed.
The More We Love, okay? The More We Love Foundation, and she runs that, but it is all about reminding people that your identity is not made up of all of the bad experiences that or decisions you've made. You still deserve dignity and respect. And someone sitting, homeless person sitting on the side of the road deserves for you to look in their eye and acknowledge that they exist. Just that alone brings dignity to a human being.
I work very hard to make sure that I see the people that are there and other people don't see. You have no idea though, just like you even acknowledging some of the experiences I've had has impacted me today. Now. I know. And that means so much to another human being, and it's also kind of like why I love doing what I'm doing with this podcast is I want to hear your story because your story matters. Your life matters. And if you've never been told that before, you deserve to be told that your life matters to me. You know what I mean? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So anyway, I love what you're doing. I'm going to say one last thing before I kind of jump off that. Before last year, I didn't know that I had anxiety and depression. Yeah. I just kind of thought that kind of gnawing feeling was always just, I don't know. I didn't know what it was, but I know that I was always questing to try to figure out how to feel it, right? How to ease it. And I didn't understand depression. And I'm just going to say, if it wasn't for my puppy Duke, and just because.
Oh, I love dogs.
Wait, have you not
Aren't
seen?
they so?
Have you not seen Duke?
Well, show the camera.
Yeah. So this is Duke, right? Oh, come on now, don't. That's Duke right here.
Did he rub a balloon on his head?
He was like 4.5 months old. He was playing under the blanket when I lifted up. I got a couple of pictures of him, and I was surprised too because I was like, "There's no chance I'm going to pick my phone up left-handed." Get the camera open and get a picture taken. Now, if I was like an 8 or 10-year-old kid, I could do it with one finger.
Oh, I know.
Right? And not miss anything.
Yeah.
But I managed to snap a couple of shots.
I have to sneak and try to get my kids on camera too, because they could be done and off saying something else. If I can catch them saying something funny, I'm like, yes.
You get them. Yeah. If it wasn't for Duke, first and foremost, and for my team, who, if I was gone, I would have killed myself last year. Suicide's an all-time high for people who've released from confinement. 100% of my peer group has been there mentally and emotionally. It's this enormous sense of displacement that we we try to muscle our way through. And so I say that to say summer sometime I started smoking again after over 20 years. One terrible, terrible thing. I stopped. Thank God. I stopped. Well,
I'm
I
like,
started
okay, well,
vaping to get off of the smoking because I don't want to seem misleading. But I would do is I would stop at gas stations in the Central District, like in wherever, and I would sit down like on the curb with unhoused people and
shoot the
and talk with them and
That's
get them to go in and get them an energy drink or something. I even had the people in the gas station working there tell me that I couldn't come in and buy something for one of them. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Because like if you say it again, I'm going to turn my camera on my phone
and
and
record it.
then we're gonna be all over
Yeah.
about this."
You're so brave.
Right. And they didn't say it again. I mean,
Yeah.
they definitely allowed me to make my purchase. And so it's very important. And you know, one of the things that, and that's what, so I have Just Us Solutions as a LLC, as a for-profit company, but I also created Just Us Society because we didn't do it this last year. We had a lot of upheaval going on. But in the winter of 2024 coming into 2025, we did a lot of outreach work at the unhoused encampments. And the truth is, like, I couldn't afford $1,500 a week to go buy blankets and all that stuff. My plan was to use Just Us Society to fundraise or just to receive donations of things.
That's
Almost
what Christine's The More We Love. We used to partner with Union Gospel Mission. We'd go out in their search and rescue vans and hand out blankets. But she does a coat drive every year too. So
I don't have this up very much where I live now in the Hallmark movie and the Kalani HOA and Issaquah, but when I lived in Tukwila, I would stop in the middle of traffic and give away jackets.
No, I love that. Yeah, it's like, have you met Richard McAdams? If that name rings a bell, he was at Union Gospel Mission forever, and now he's at the Salvation Army. But when
kind
we
of a
would
big
go
husky
out,
guy.
yeah, and he was a heroin junkie.
Rich,
and
I think we do know him.
he's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
We would go out on search and rescue.
Yeah, he drives
and
a pickup truck, right?
Yeah, I think he still does. He would literally get out, just like get right out of his car, or we'd be out in the vans, and he would walk up to somebody that was just walking around this. He would take his shoes off and give them to him.
Yeah.
And he would do it over and over. He'd get a new pair over and over and over. And it's like, those are brand new. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. One day he had a coat on, that one of the ones that are really nice to have the heat on the inside.
Somebody asked him for it.
Yep. He gave it right to him.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know.
Almost 100% of unhoused people, when I say, hey, you know, would you like a hug? Can I hug you? They're like, you know,
and a hug is free.
Yeah, like, are you sure? Like, you know, I don't smell very good, or some other way that they're feeding that to themselves, the negative imaging
that they don't deserve a hug.
Right, negative imaging that the social construct we have is beating them down with, anyways. So
imagine if we just gave each other hugs.
Well, you know, it's funny. That
would change the world.
So at the University of Washington, a couple of months ago, I was on a panel there, and a documentary drama theater professor contacted, she was there, and she contacted a professor, Claudia Jensen, that I've been friends and colleagues with for years when I was inside. And she introduced us. I didn't understand at the time what was going on, but her three students wanted to hear the story of my life so that they could select things to act out during the performance. And that's what they titled it, was The Boy Who Asked for Hugs.
Oh, wow.
Right. So
that's right. Yeah. Okay. I saw that.
Yes. So with that, I will, and you know, it was very emotional. Like I told you, of course I cried. So, you know, a little bit about my childhood. And one thing that I want to say is, like, I'm looking through things with a different lens today. I was asked a very good question last night by one of my family members, Kareen, very brilliant. And like, clearly I feel like this maybe question had been gestating for a while, and this was just the opportunity to have it presented. But it was, hey, do you look at where you were and all of the things that have happened? Is that where you stay focused? Like, do you have any focus on the future? Like, and the honest answer is, like, you know, like maybe like 20, 30%, like almost exclusively my thinking towards the future is, trying to make sure that I'm ensuring enough income coming into the company to sustain my Ben Brocky. He had a baby last summer. He's absolutely a remarkable human. He's going to be one of the strongest forces I think that we ever see come out of Washington State for indigenous rights, but just genuinely as humanitarian, as who cares. And so my answer was like, gosh, like I don't really know how to imagine my future. You see, growing up, like I was worried about avoiding getting hurt every day. We mentioned hypervigilance. Listen, I mean, I have complex PTSD because of childhood and adult trauma. And
Were you born here in Washington?
no, I was born in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
So being able to imagine the future is something that I need to maybe start working with other people to help me kind of get into that mindset, because I just don't have. I never saw myself at 52 years old. Like I never imagined that I was going to live to be 52.
Imagine that. It's like you just live in the present every single day. It's just today.
Well,
it's always been that way.
One of the big problems about the carceral space is it really, really develops an individual mindset. And what I mean by that is we spend much of our time. If anybody ever tells you, hey, listen, I was inside and I never forgot about, I didn't think about being free or whatever. Like, listen, I served 4,983 days in custody, in federal custody straight. And there wasn't a single day that went by that I did not think about being free. But as we imagine those things, it's a very singular kind of thinking. It's like, okay, I want to get out and hopefully I can get a job for like, maybe what would I need? Like $22.50 an hour in order to pay this much rent. And I can imagine myself getting off of work. And for those of us that have been in the hole for years, like that's how we sustain ourselves, is we'll pace the cell and we will go through these cycles of these fantasies or what we could be doing, right?
But not actually planning it.
Well, because right. And I was just talking to my friend JP. He's the recovery specialist and health coach for Justice Solutions. He also has his own company, Second Chance Stoic. I don't know if you've seen him yet on social media.
I might have actually.
Yeah, he's absolutely a remarkable human. Thankfully, the prosecutor in Oregon also saw how unique and awesome he is. They resentenced him on December 23rd, reducing his sentence by 12 years, and I brought him home.
Okay, that's where I saw it.
And
I saw you meeting him at the gate.
And when you're going through these ideas in your head, like imagining walking into a gas station, it's not even fair to say that it's one dimensional. It's even less than that if there's something less than that. Because once you get into the space, like you imagine yourself sitting on a couch with a remarkable person, having thoughtful conversation, but like I don't have the sense of the light hitting your earrings and things like that, right?
You don't have the little details.
Right. You don't have it. So it's not robust, but it's all individual. And like for myself, of course, I don't want to be alone in life, but I don't know how necessarily to imagine the future. The way that I'm seeing things really is less about the details of childhood experiences. Much of my childhood can really be summarized. There are some very important spaces.
Let me ask you it this way then. What, when you think about your childhood, what are the memories that you like to go to in your mind?
Now, and it's so funny you say that because that was part of their performance last night.
Really?
Yeah, my sister and I.
I've asked the same question of the teen that I interviewed, and he was talking about how his father was abusive, not just physically, but sexually as well with he and his sisters. And he talked about his experience. And I said, what memories in your childhood do you like to remember?
Don't tell me his answer before I tell you mine.
No, I'm not going to tell you his answer. You can go watch it on.
Okay, I will do that. My sister and I talked about this a few months ago when she was here for visiting. She's up in Alaska. We're very close as siblings who tend to grow up in a violent household. And like I just seem incapable of bringing forward anything from my childhood, from remembering anything. It's like I've repressed anything except for the most severe things.
Oh yeah.
Like and like I know that my dad took us to E.T. and I know that my dad took us to Return of the Jedi, and I know that my dad took me to watch Red Dawn. Like I know those things.
So the movies you remember,
but I can't associate a feeling of any kind of a positive feeling with it. It's just completely.
You just remember the experience, but not how you felt.
Not even the experience. It's just literally that we did it.
We did it. Okay.
But it's almost like the same one-dimensional experience.
You know why? If I may, because I may
Sure.
be putting words in your mouth, but there is so much, even if you're not being hit, beat, yelled at, diminished, the threat of it happening and waiting for it to happen just absolutely numbs
Overwhelms
out
everything.
all the happiness that you remember. And so, I mean, even in my own experience, when I talk about some of the things, like people are like, well, it couldn't have been all bad. But, like, no, of course it wasn't all bad. And actually, I can remember some happy feelings because I didn't have it. It wasn't all bad. But I don't know why when I think about my childhood, I think about the most traumatic times because they outweighed the happy times.
Dramatic.
Yes. And it's sad that it's just that way. I think I probably have some work to do to try to compartmentalize and separate that so that I can remember some of the things. But yeah, I felt very muted as a child because in our household, it was don't speak unless you're spoken to. Children are supposed to be seen and not heard. I was spanked ruthlessly, for the very littlest things. And I can remember specifically being hauled out of the church sanctuary to be spanked in the church parking lot. Well, I'm sure because all of the windows were open, everybody could hear what was going on. So, like, these things are not just physically hurt, they physically hurt me, but mentally humiliating. And just that feeling of growing up that way stunted my growth, stunted me as an individual and a human. So not to say though that I also didn't have I do have some very fun memories and there are some very happy times that I do remember, but I get it. I get why it's hard for your mind to go there and remember the happy times because of the hypervigilance.
Really.
Thank you.
And just so you know, I'm giving that little girl a hug.
Thank you. Yeah. It's so funny. I'm sorry, I don't want to take over your story, but isn't it cool that our
story
can heal ourselves? I have not relied on anyone to take that from me. I've tried to look at that little girl and give myself a hug. That is very freeing.
That was a very big turning point for me when I got into trauma care.
Yeah.
A few things about my childhood. So my mother, Shirley, my mother, anyways, I'm sorry. I'm not going to try to change it for this. She threw me down a hallway when I was 31 months old. In fact, since we're actually here in person, you can still feel the cracks in my skull.
Wow.
You feel them?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I won't try to.
Sorry. And my head's all greasy and shit. I'm so sorry. I just her hand, everybody. I'm so sorry. I'm horrible. I'm so sorry. I said, give me your hand. You're going to feel this. I'm so sorry. Yeah, there you go. My awareness of appropriate etiquette it's not.
It's all good. It takes a lot to get a rise. But I can imagine, oh my gosh, just feeling that every day, you're reminded of it.
It is absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, obviously she didn't kill me. My sister and I.
Did you have to go to the hospital for that?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh yeah. She.
And were the police called?
Well, yes, there are police reports on it because I've had them and I've read them, but there were no charges filed. She gave custody of us to our father. My sister and I both went to live with him and the woman who would become our stepmother, Jean. And they were both very violent alcoholics. My very first memory is my father standing over me and I see him wearing, I see his dark hair, I see his face, and I see the hood on this parka because we're, it's Alaska, it's cold. I can see the hood on the parka and all I feel is fear. It's like the only thing I can associate with it. And I said it before and I'll say it again, like I didn't stop being afraid in life until other people became afraid of me. But that also was the unhealthy manifestation, just like I said a little while ago about trying to take over the world so that you feel safe. Trying to be more dangerous, obviously for me, than my father was how I could try to find, it was a false sense of safety. I mean, I feel safe today, but that's because I've healed in so many ways. And when I was about 4.5 years old, Bill put a security chain on the outside of my bedroom door and gave me a Folgers can to use the bathroom in and started locking me in. And when I was home there.
What age were you?
I was 4.5.
4.5.
And one of the bizarre things, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but, and I have, there's notes, like anyways, for some reason that was okay. But I turned 6 years old doing an inpatient evaluation at Lucille Packard's Children's Hospital in Stanford. Bill had sent me down to California with my mom, Shirley, who lived like in San Bruno or something like that. And I remember the inpatient evaluation vaguely, like there were pieces of it, but like reading the chart notes, like I remember things. For instance, they charted that I was always asking people for hugs, right? And I remember that, right? I remember that little boy. Somewhere that little boy got lost, but then I found him again in my early 40s. And there are people in prison who call me Huggy Bear and stuff like that. Like I'm a hugger. In fact, I got yelled at once by an officer who told me that if I kept hugging, I believe it was my friend Justin Hoyt, that she was going to
need hugs.
that she was going to.
They just need literal physical touch. Just even doing this,
and that's
it will help them thrive. A child growing up with no skin touching, nothing, not a holding a hand or a finger.
No, there's none of that going on.
You could get failure to thrive if you're a baby and you don't get that. You could literally die from no touching.
And recently I began contemplating, or I realized, because like touch genuinely is my primary love language. And I, of course, wonder how much more traumatic and impactful the abuses that I suffered as a child were because of that, right? Because I don't think that develops through life. I think probably, and of course now as it goes to 5 love languages, I personally believe that they should all be present in a healthy relationship because life is so multifaceted. But I wanted to footnote that.
Yeah.
And so
but I can see as a child why you would ask for hugs.
Oh yeah.
Because you needed it. You needed it to live.
And, for a long time I wondered, like, I didn't understand why they didn't let me stay at Stanford, because I feel like they were probably the best suited to try to help me. They, acknowledged that.
Why were you sent there?
For an evaluation. I mean, I was emotionally disturbed. Like, my behavior was off the charts. I mean, what had my experiences been like up to that point? What do you expect from literally I turned 6 years old there. What do you expect from a 5-year-old child whose mother almost kills him and whose father locks him in a room?
Solitary.
Yeah. For days and stuff, So for a long time, I would say that I don't understand why they sent me back to Alaska, that I wish they had left me there because I felt like Stanford could have helped me. Unfortunately, after I did the podcast with Eric and Amy Barden, my sister tried to watch it and she couldn't. She had to stop, but she watched far enough to answer that question. My father, Bill, had told Shirley that if she didn't send me back to Alaska, she would never get to see Kathy again. So they used my sister. And when I got to Alaska, back to Alaska, they put me in the children's unit at Alaska Psychiatric Institute. And this is very important because so much of my life centers on some of the experiences there. I mean, there were a lot of awful things. I don't need to, go through that.
Psychiatric hospital.
Well, if you can imagine how far Alaska is behind us at all times. Yeah. Imagine, in 1980, they were maybe even in the 50s up there, right?
Yeah.
It was atrocious. But what they would do when I was being disruptive or otherwise not integrating well with my peers, can't imagine why I wouldn't, since, I'm constantly terrified of being smacked around and kicked and whatever, or just being locked in my room. They would put me in what they called the quiet room. And I remember the quiet room.
What were some of your behaviors? Do you mind me asking?
So of course, I didn't get along with other kids because I didn't have socialization.
Yeah.
And of course, my emotional regulation. I mean, of course, I was manifesting the heartbeat,
tantrums.
The heartbeat of PTSD.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you need to control yourself. Well, hey, listen, newsflash, people.
Control. What does that mean?
Well, but yeah, right. And I didn't even understand the way the brain works around PTSD until I got into therapy purely on accident. Shout out to Christine Gomes for seeing somebody that she knew could be helped and getting permission to help me. When you're in prison in Washington State, you get 3 1-hour visits with mental health a year if you're not on psychotropic medication.
Year.
If you're not on psychotropic medication. We're healing people hand over fist in Washington State prison system. And so they would put me in this quiet room, and much of my life, do you know what IFS is, internal family systems? It's a model of therapy. It was actually Christine, that was her specialty. And it makes a lot of sense to me because maybe it's just very organized. And I think it resonates with me, which is crazy because I have ADHD. So organized is almost the last thing I am outside of certain spaces in here. But
I'm laughing because I can relate.
The managers that I developed in life were all really to protect that little boy in that quiet room, because that was one of the most traumatic things, the horrifying sense of loneliness and isolation and abandonment.
Mhm.
And for me, it was this enormous, in fact, my friend,
How long were you in a quiet room at a time?
oh, God, I don't remember. But they
Because it's
would,
basically like you're locked in your room again.
well, and it was worse than that. Unfortunately, it would get worse. Uh, JP and I were looking at a house a couple months or a couple weeks ago. They were thinking about renting, and there was living space downstairs. And we walked into this one that was like white tile,
Oh,
linoleum,
no.
bright lights, and it was literally just like the quiet room. I didn't say anything to him, but like I turned, I said, "Listen, there's no way in the world
No
that
way.
I'm living in here." I couldn't even like stand in there. And so, I would scream and cry and beg, and they had these heavy mesh. Well, yeah, really, it was kind of fine mesh, but it was really heavy. It wasn't like expanded metal over the windows. You could barely see like
Oh,
out, like to see a light from the other side of one of the buildings, if like an office light or whatever was
yeah.
on. And they would eventually come in, and they give me what they called a PRN. They give me a shot in the butt, a tranquilizer shot, and then strap me down 4
Strap
points to a
you.
bed. Yeah, 4-point restraints to a bed. They'd wheel the bed into the room.
Oh.
I was too short to be able to see out the window of the quiet room, of course. And it wasn't long before I discovered that if I peed on myself, they would let me up for a 2-minute shower. Like, so as soon as I could squeeze out some pee, I was, because like I wanted to be able to
Wow.
just get up and move and walk for a few minutes. And you know what? If you can let me up to walk to the shower, you don't need to have me strapped to a bed.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
How could they do that to you?
yeah, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
Um,
How long were you there?
20 months.
20 months and you were 6 years old?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So much of my life.
You don't have to comfort me.
I don't
Ser-
have to. I want to.
I know, but I just
unless it makes you uncomfortable.
no, I just want you to know they shouldn't have done that.
They
You
shouldn't have.
didn't deserve that because a child doesn't deserve discipline. They deserve being shown how to resolve conflict. Okay? You don't teach a child that way.
When I was at Stanford, the chart notes.
You don't teach a human being adult that way. You cannot teach an adult how to resolve conflict by locking them in a room. And this is what you do, right?
Unfortunately, so when I was at Stanford, and I have the chart notes for it, another part of their performance last night was Shirley and I were, I don't know, we are just having disagreements. I remember her being like super demanding and controlling. And she told me to punch her in the heart. And I was like, and I didn't want to. She says, you have to hit to get your anger out. And
did you have to hit her though? Because I tell the kids they can punch the pillow if they want to get their anger out.
Yeah.
Or scream. I tell them to scream.
Well, she did. And finally I did. And for a really, really long time, I was, part of my anger and unhappiness towards her was like, how do you teach an emotionally disturbed little boy that you hit to get your anger out?
Right.
Because
see, I heard that part of your story too. And you're like, why did they teach me to do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because she was hurt. She was broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really, really big part of all of the things that came after, and the different sort of personas I adopted to the managers in order to, I just always just wanted to protect that little boy. So, I eventually left Alaska at 11. Things did not get better.
Now how were you removed? Where did you go? Why did you leave at 11?
Well, by then I had figured out how to slip the chain on the door.
Oh.
Yeah, I would use a comb, and I would almost close the door, and I would push it until the chain fell out. And I didn't do it every day, right? Because, I mean, I wanted to be able to have some basis to tell Jean, because she would like she'd start literally drinking like R&R and stuff like that first thing in the morning. And
oh, this was when you were back home. So you were out of the mental institution and then back home.
Yes, right.
Who is Jean?
My stepmom.
Okay. Okay.
And, she would, basically go in and pass out around noon or whatever. It wasn't a nap. This was like, hey, listen, I've got to go under until I can come up. And so a lot of times I would slip the chain and come out and do stuff. And, funny, when my sister, she was being interviewed by my mitigation specialist, Julie Armijo, she told Julie that she used to be out like in the yard playing and look up at my window to my room and think about me being locked in there. And, for me, it's like, wow, I never imagined, like, we see like this, I can see so much like this, but I can't see what you're seeing here. Right. And there's a reason why we share perspectives and stuff so that we can help see the things that aren't necessarily there for us. And Kathy had went to live with our mom, Shirley, because she was being abused horribly by our father.
Mm.
And so I was there alone. And I had somehow discovered that if I took one of Bill's little blue pills, and I think later he told me that, like, what are you doing? Like, I take half of one of these, but I would take one of those and I'd drink a beer. And like, I was feeling grand. I was 10 and a
At
half years
11
old.
o'clock.
Well,
Oh my
I was
gosh.
10 and a half.
10 and a half
And
years
I was
old.
like, man, this is
And you
good
found
times.
it.
Yes.
Medication? What was it?
Yeah, I don't know. It was probably a pain pill or a sleeping pill, something like that. But like, listen, I felt fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I felt good enough to try to become a terrorist. I think you heard me mention this.
Okay.
I had a very short-lived career. I was much more determined to be a bank robber than I was a terrorist.
Okay.
So some lessons I think I learned quicker,
Yeah.
more quickly. So I decided to call in a bomb threat to the school I've been kicked out of.
Oh my
And
gosh.
this lady, so I picked the phone up off top of my microwave. Now, the microwave was a big deal in the early 80s,
Yes.
right? And I called the school because, the number is written right there on the cork board or whatever. And some lady answers, and I'm like, there's a bomb, get everybody out of the school.
What put that thought in your mind?
I don't know. I think maybe I'd seen something on TV where that
Okay.
was done and everybody went running out screaming and stuff.
You just
And I was
wanted to
like,
get like
I'm going to show them who's boss, right? And she says, what? And I said, there's a bomb, get everybody out of the building. And there's this pause and she says, Jacob, is that you? Click. I hung the phone up and I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? Like, oh my God, right? Because
she nabbed you.
And my little addled drug and alcohol addled mind, a few minutes went by and I just completely forgotten about it until the cops showed up. And Gene, when they left, Gene beat me with a passion that, it's not really important to go into. But it was the impetus that got me sent to a place called Christie School on Merrillhurst campus outside of Lake Oswego. Fortunately, they've been shut down. I actually went there. There's a video of it actually on my Facebook page. It was an interesting piece of closure for me.
How long were you there?
2 years.
From age
11 to 13.
Okay.
And I was almost 2 years, like to the day. It was March to March. And thankfully, I was told, because they're using one of the cottages now for like juvenile addiction recovery space.
Okay.
And somebody came out to talk to me, and he told me that they had lost their license like 15, 17, 18 years ago, which made me happy.
Yeah.
And, he had the awareness to tell me that that they used the quiet room for a mop closet.
That's good.
And-
All
and
right.
I,
You said quiet room. I'm not like,
And that was, I guess, maybe more of a hug to parts of me that to know that they weren't being used anymore.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 years there. And again, like at this point, I'm so emotionally dysregulated. I have no idea, like, what does it look like to have like a peer group to really socially interact and to like, I just was incapable of it. I always struggled. It was, there were 6 boys and 6 girls. It was a co-ed cottage. The 2 cottages were all girls. Later, I would discover the joys of falling in love. And
Teen love.
Preteen.
Preteen love.
Yeah.
Where you're like
and we were-
holding hands and that's
we were-
like,
Oh, well,
Big deal.
we weren't really allowed to do that, but it was,
Yeah.
we would sneak around and kiss and stuff.
that's
And
adorable.
yeah, listen, and anyways,
Shit, that's junior high though, right? That's about the age of junior high.
no, I was 12. Is that junior high? Well, so last grade I completed was 5th grade. I was skipped to 7th.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I had my
Wow.
GED and I even had
Okay.
some college, but I'm self-educated. Listen, all the credit in the world to books.
So am I. I never went to college. Well, I graduated high school, but yeah, college.
Conventional education is overrated.
Oh, 100%. Get into real estate. That's what I'm saying. Or go to trade school. That's going to be the big thing.
You know, I spent a couple years there, and the tipping point for me to be able to go live with my mom, with Shirley in California and Kathy, Bill and Jean had come to visit. And I remember we were at this hotel in Lake Oswego, and Bill handed me the TV guide, and he told me to put it on the bottom, on the shelf, on the very bottom of this TV stand. And instead of putting it down there, I put it on top, and he immediately started yelling at me. And I tried to tell him that I was putting it up there because I didn't want Jean to have to bend down to grab it. Right. But of course, you know, he didn't give me an opportunity for that. Now I'm arguing. So he smacked me and I punched him. And he was like, oh, yeah, well, we can't have that. And took me back and then gave custody to Shirley. And so I went to California at 13. I was in the system just as almost as fast as I got there. And I made this, you know, the juvenile hall, county boys ranch. They told me they were so proud of themselves there in La Honda. They were like, yeah, you guys can run away. We're not going to chase you because, you know, and tomorrow we'll find you with poison ivy and you'll be at the side of the road trying to wave someone down because you're lost. Clearly, they didn't know I was from Alaska, because when I got tired of getting picked on,
skills.
and I walked up, they were all laughing and cheering, and I got turned myself in at juvenile hall after I'd been, you know, back around everybody for a few days, right? So,
did you make any friendships in there that?
None.
No. It was every man for himself.
I just didn't have the skills
to connect with somebody else.
And then your group homes, more boys ranches, and finally the California Youth Authority. And, you know, I think that that's a really big point to give attention to. In my story and the story of so many others who actually end up in the juvenile system, like here in Washington State, it's Echo Glen and it's Green Hill School for Boys. Well, what an atrocious thing to call it, because it is anything but if it's a school, I assure you, it's not one that you ever want your children to be taught at.
No. Well, the troubled teen industry is in itself just totally flawed.
Well, so for me and I can literally speak to my personal experience, and I know that there has to be truths in this for other people who were similarly situated. When I was sent to the California Youth Authority, like every aberrant behavior pattern or characteristic that I demonstrated, you know, the inability to develop, that kept me from being able to have friends in a peer group, kept getting me kicked out of school, that just literally left me as the ultimate misfit. All of that stuff became an attribute in there. Like that was the great stuff. What, you like to fight? Yeah, I'm down to fight, right? For me, all of a sudden at 15, of course, now I look back, I realize they weren't my friends, right? I understand that. But all of a sudden, like, I fit in someplace. Like all of the things that kept me ostracized, kept me as a pariah in the community, were the things that I could thrive. Now, of course, staff and administration
or at least
didn't
you
like
just
it.
knew that you weren't the only one going through this. So there's
But I
a
wasn't
little
going,
camaraderie.
but see, I didn't even understand that I was going through anything, right? I had no frame of reference to understand that. For us, like, you know, we still had the sort of the utopian idea about life. Maybe that, hey, gosh, you know, because like we're children, we're 15, and life. Who thinks of mortality, and who thinks of, gosh, am I on the wrong path in life right now at 15 when like you're getting into fights every single day? Because I like that's 100% the get down. And anyhow, so for me, the way that grew for me was like I would return to the community where I didn't fit in, where I was a pariah, where I socially had just completely inept. And then I would go back to the place and the space where I fit in. And I went to San Quentin when I was 18 years old, and that's nowhere near as like formidable, I think, as people say. But the other side of it too, like my eggs were scrambled. I still remember this guy I was chained to on the bus asking me, you know, as we were pulling up at San Quentin, you know, was I nervous? Was I scared? And I told him, I was like, man, I'm excited, right? Because like I had been being conditioned, like I'd just been 3 years in the youth authority, and like this is exactly where we look to go, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so as life moves forward, when as a emotionally dysregulated, I don't know that emotionally disturbed is the right phrasing. I don't know what we call a 15-year-old. I know what we call a 5-year-old who was behaving as emotionally disturbed. But for me as a teen, like I've never.
It was almost like you were trained.
Yeah,
to be this way.
But I was just I didn't have bad
You
intentions.
didn't
Like,
have any other reference.
I wasn't malicious. And so,
No, how could it be? Especially if you're the boy who asks for hugs.
well, I had stopped asking for hugs by then. I lost
Yeah.
that boy for a while.
No.
And, you know, so for me, and I talk about this to people because, you know, like our brains substantively in many ways do what they've done for thousands of years.
That's the word I'm looking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I was programmed to be
excited for San Quentin.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right?
And, you know, when we talk about like a 15-year-old and the behavior I was demonstrating, like as a child, you couldn't punish me into good behavior because the fact that if I got 3 write-ups on the bus meant that I was going to get laid over the principal's desk and get the big wooden paddle three times.
I get a visceral reaction.
Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that matter? Because like, there's no such thing as being good or bad at home because no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to get hurt. Right. So punishment was not the right tool. And, you know, there comes a time when our brain still works like tribe versus non-tribe. And when we see non-tribe, we think, okay, we assess this for a threat. And then we think, okay, conquest. And so if the carceral space becomes your tribe, and even as divided as we are in there, typically by race, a lot of times by geography, when we come out here, those divisions are lessened because we'll pass, you know, at least back then in the 90s, we would, you know, pass somebody, you know, in a grocery store, we could sense each other. And it didn't matter, you know, if you're a white guy and a black guy or whatever, you acknowledged each other because, hey, listen, like we're out here in this world because this is not our tribe. And if it's not our tribe, then why are we acting surprised that people are returning to the community and then being predators? They see people, they figure out, assess, hey, what kind of threat is this person to me? And if they're not a threat, okay, well now what kind of conquest? What do we have going on here?
Isn't that interesting?
And I like to use this as an example. And it is a truth for the community in prison, at least historically. And I just want to say the culture of prison is changing dramatically. And particularly here in Washington, I love being close enough to be able to observe it and see it and hear it. But anyways, in some ways, at least the way that we think and the way that we conduct ourselves. But so in prison, I'm gonna do some hypotheticals here, and I'm gonna make myself super cool because in this hypothetical, you're gonna be my wife. Okay, so say my friend, in fact, I'll use JP as an example. So I send you a picture of me and JP. Okay. And you've got it on your desk at work. I don't know, maybe you work at a travel agency or whatever. And your boss, the owner, she comes by, she's like, oh gosh, who's that guy with Jacob? And you're like, oh, you know, that's his best friend, whatever, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh God, he's gorgeous, you know, or whatever. And maybe they start exchanging letters, right? Now, I'm not saying that JP and the literal person that I know, because he's very ethical, he's very, very human centered, but the person inside incarcerated would be like, hey, listen, man, you know, so you know, whatever I get, man, I'll cut you in on it because she's not tribe. Okay. But if your sister or a close friend of yours saw the picture and started writing, the conversation would be, hey, listen, I just want you to know, like, I would not do anything to harm, you know, your wife's family or friends. Right. Because it's an extent. Tribe. Exactly. And that is like a truth in reasoning in there, like unequivocally. I can't tell you how many.
Everybody in there, no matter how long they've been, have been basically programmed to think that way on the outside.
Yeah,
it's tribe or non-tribe.
We come out here like
who's a threat, who's not a threat.
Well, we call people freebs.
Freebs.
Okay. Some of us do. Shout out to my very dear friend David Pilatos for coining the phrase for me. Well, people out here think very differently than us.
It's kind of like with military, you're either civilian or is it military?
Yeah.
Military or civilian? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just you're a civilian because anything that's not a civilian is military, right? You know, so there's so many layers.
And potential threat.
Right.
Civilian could be a potential threat to, okay. And then freebs are potential threat to.
I don't know that I would use that language today. What I would say is that there's an enormous inability to understand, like, look, true understanding comes from experience. I would never wish, you know, over 30 years of adult incarceration on anyone. I would never
wish 90 days in incarceration on anyone because it's truly hell.
Yeah. You know, so for me, I think the big thing, which is actually happening today, particularly here in Washington, Pre-COVID, we had a very robust volunteer program. And when I say robust, like over 40,000 hours in a year of volunteer time donated at MCC, at the Monroe Correctional Complex. That was one of the, I don't remember if it was 2018 or 2017.
Anywhere from what would they volunteer to do?
Education programs, life experience
Counseling.
stuff. No,
Free counseling.
No.
Oh, you only got 3 hours a year.
And I actually developed a pilot program where we
Wow.
could receive trauma care by video, but it doesn't matter. They're never going to invest any money in that.
May I ask, in the interest of time, because I want to keep talking about how you formed your foundation and stuff. And like I said, we could talk for hours. So I hope I just by me kind of directing the conversation
it's fine. I don't know.
to this way. You come across as someone who has developed social skills that you were not programmed in there.
Reverse engineering.
Can you talk about
Well,
that?
you know what? It's funny because that was, remember earlier I said.
You could have told me that you've done any time.
Well,
period.
I usually tell people I lead with it because honestly, and seems to be probably why I'm single. Once I tell people my past, it's like, hey, have a good life. When I was about 23, I had a friend named Richard Gunderson, and he was he wasn't just a pen pal. Like, he actually came to visit me a few times, which was very nice. And he told me, he said, Jacob, if you want to teach boys about girls, send them to boys' school. And I said, man, you're out of your mind.
Huh?
Yeah, you're out of your mind. I want to go where the girls are. I'm a horny mess, whatever I said, right? It was pretty much in that vein.
But definitely, if you want to learn about girls, learn from a girl what a girl is like.
Well, maybe, but hold on a second. You're right in that context, in that literal context, but this was meant more metaphorically. This wasn't actually meant literally about girls.
Okay.
And I learned what it meant when I went to federal prison, because I went 11 and a half years without a visitor. And I didn't understand what that did to me until this woman that I finally, like literally in 2010, I never did any of the pen pal sites, none of that stuff, because
did you not think you needed it, or what's the point?
I was just ignoring the world. I didn't want, I had to turn away.
Like,
I had to turn away.
Well, it's a fear of rejection too.
No. It was a survival mechanism, because I just had to ignore the world's existence. Otherwise I think it would have torn me apart.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got this visit, I understood the hurt. And over time, as I matured, I also realized that what Richard meant was, if you want to teach somebody to really value something and appreciate it, completely strip them of it. You want to teach somebody about being attentive, put them in a place where it doesn't exist.
And then you build the attentiveness from zero.
Because you know what the complete opposite of it looks like.
Yeah. That does make sense, because, well, another military reference is that's what they do with them too, is they build the soldier from zero. That's why they break them down so quickly in boot camp.
You want to teach somebody to make sure that you're seeing someone else, and that you also tell them they're seen. Completely make them not seen, like they don't exist, right?
I get that.
So that was a really big thing for me. That was a really impactful awareness.
Where did that start? It was in prison?
Oh yeah, those things I learned in prison. And there's a lot of things, a lot of behavioral characteristics that me and my peer group have, that I'm just going to say, society is plagued with guys masquerading as men. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. You guys need to pull it together.
So is there someone who walked you through that process of, no, you did it yourself, and you just wanted them to be like a human on the outside while you were still inside?
Yes, I learned. So the last time I went back to prison, it was with the commitment to help others learn how to be in prison without allowing prison to be in us. Because what took me back to prison was I had a prison relationship standard. And in prison, when I've got your back, it means I've got your back. And when I committed to having this woman's back, I met her in an NA meeting. I shouldn't have been having to go to NA. I have no history of addiction or alcohol abuse, never been arrested under the influence of drugs or alcohol, in possession in prison, ever. But when the feds are paying, everyone wants to get paid. So I met a cute girl wearing yoga pants. Like, I say that, it's just like, gosh. But really, the thing for me was her two kids. She had a 10-year-old little boy and an 8-year-old little girl. And I discovered like what the absolute joy of life is which is loving. And I say this all the time. Up until that point, I had navigated all of the negative emotional ranges almost constantly all throughout my life, from just, just uncomfortable to terror, to irritated to rage, right? Just all of these things, like they were the constant and the consistent, but nothing prepared me for how amazing it would feel to just pour love. And now, of course, today I understand that if you're giving love, you also need to be receiving it back in different ways, because you have to have your cup replenished.
Yes. And you talked about your love language. And I think that was such it's been a very important book in a lot of people's relationships. Now, I totally relate to, there's nothing that gives you more joy than to pour your love into someone else. And that's been my experience too. But yes, when you're pouring and then you're feeling like, okay, I need my cup filled too, it does. It affects you.
So that's what I went back to prison with.
Have you learned how to set a certain, not boundary, but an expectation for yourself to make sure you're being filled too? Not that love has to be transactional.
Yeah, no.
But you do need to love yourself enough to expect that
I will
kind of
say,
love back.
you're right. You're 100% right. I will say that I have a chosen family that has enriched my life and brought me joys that I could have never imagined. It's in my code over there. So I mean, I have a daughter, and she gave me a little thing that I keep on my keychain. It's a pocket hug for Christmas. She gave me my first Father's Day card last year. I had completely just broke down and cried, because like never ever occurred to me that I would get a Father's Day card,
or that you would be looked at as a father.
Yes, or that I was even worth filling that space. And her mom is it's amazing the level of closeness that we have, and the ability to share. And like it is truly amazing. I think to both of us, this is also so valuable to have somebody that we can talk to about things, whatever those things are, without judgment. And it is amazing. And
unconditional love.
And I don't want to leave Gavin out, because he's an amazing young man.
He's your son?
No.
Who's Gavin? The dad.
No. Gavin is the son, Kareen's son, his brother. But he has an existing relationship with the father, who's not a charming man. And so I don't try to fill that with him, but I snatch his little narrow ass up into hugs. And
you know what? I think you're having the experience of what it's like to be so I've been a stepmom a couple of times. And it really is such a unique experience, because you're not their biological mom. You're not even like, their whole biological family looks at you as, hey, thanks for loving my kid, but he's not your kid. That doesn't change my love for that kid.
No, he's wonderful.
And it doesn't change the relationship you have with them, vice versa. Right. Because my stepkids have all said, you were my, I look at you as a significant person in my life. And I never got to be biologically a part of their family, but it still was just as special.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, when I talk about joys and things in life out here, when, you ask me the questions like that, some of the most important things that come to mind are those things, but like relationships, the way I get love back. And I talk about this all the time, because I think it's so important, because it's not unique to me. And 12 years ago, almost right now, I made a very intentional decision with no idea of the magnitude of impact that it would have in my life. And I decided that relationships with other people mattered more than anything else. And I only had two people in this world, Kyle Johnson. And so Kyle got clemency and released last year, about a year ago right now, after serving just shy of 36 years. He's one of my oldest friends. There are a few people, and it's nice to have friendships of over 30 years. Daniel Delgado is my oldest friend. And, I could not have somebody closer as a brother. Mark Falls, Kyle Johnson, Sterling Jarnigan, these people. In fact, Sterling probably unequivocally contributed more to my growth and development as a good person under the worst circumstances in the whole. And my Nana, but she wasn't really my Nana. She was my friend Neil Morgan's Nana. When he transferred from the federal prison he was at in Florida with me to go to California so he could be closer to his family, she told me that she had enough love and room in her heart for another grandson, and asked me to please stay in touch with her. And I never actually got to see her, because I went back to prison, and unfortunately she passed but she touched my life. And those are the only 2 relationships that I have. But I was like, you know what? I need those relationships to have absolute certainty
Mhm.
of the integrity of that relationship. And I'm telling you, 15 months, my life changed at lightning speed. And what I realized in hindsight and examining it, and I, gave speeches and Toastmasters about it, is when I made that decision, that's where I stopped surviving and I started living. And
Mhm.
people end up in survival mode for a lot of reasons. And a
Mhm.
lot of people in survival mode never take that step to conflating a need and a want and a willingness to get it no matter what. But for those that do, and I'll speak specifically for people in the carceral space, being in survival mode is what actually keeps us from having the relationships, right? And those relationships are critical. In fact, Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, have you read it?
Are you kidding?
Oh yeah. Okay. So where she
I
says that
love that
in
book.
order to have real relationships, you have to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And
Yes,
now
and you cannot be fully loved until you're fully known. I use that quote all the time.
I
That's what
figured
this
out
whole podcast is all about.
I figured out how to heal in a place that wasn't designed for
Yeah.
it. I remember telling Christine, like, hey, look, you're helping me heal, so this hurts more. Because like she was helping to strip me of the things that kept me desensitized to the abuses and to the
Mhm.
awfulness.
Buying or selling real estate isn't just a transaction, it's personal. And that's why I like to treat my clients like their family. I'm Deanna Powell with the Intrepid Home Team at Realty One Group, Orca Gold in Bellevue, Washington. With over 25 years of experience in negotiations, mortgage, title, and escrow, I deliver a true VIP client experience on every transaction, whether it's residential, luxury homes, or land. I listen first, negotiate fiercely, and protect your best interest every step of the way. With offices and partners in all 50 U.S. states, plus 30 different countries and territories around the world, you can be confident that your real estate needs will be met in every and any area you make your move. If you want expertise, integrity, and results, call me today, Deanna Powell, with the Intrepid Home Team, because every move deserves VIP treatment. I can be reached on my mobile phone 425-777-6998 or email me at team@intrepidhometeam.com. Or you can visit my website www.intrepidhometeam.com. That's spelled INTREPIDHOMETEAM.com.
One of the most important things that she did for me was information, right? And I don't know, I remember like feel like she had sort of a phrase that she used that she associated with it, but basically it was like a sort of an interactive therapy model versus sort of a very checkbook box
Yeah, reading a book,
right sort of model.
education, yeah.
And what I learned about PTSD, and like I was like, oh my God, no wonder, because like I had spent so much of my life feel like I was observing myself behaving badly and wasn't actually able to like really come back and participate in my life until look, the sky wasn't falling. Cause I just, just to be safe that nothing would accidentally hit me in the head, I would just tear it all down.
Okay.
And then I'm sitting there in this horrible space of regret and the consequences that I have to live with it, right, with that. But that's what's happening in the brain when
Yeah.
having a trauma response, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And so just coming to understand that helped me begin to develop tools to really try to avoid spaces or even to pay attention to myself. Like I said earlier, when Michaela's doing her presentations at the University of Washington, now like the very last time, like I had to leave because I was monitoring myself and I could feel the stuff rising in me. And so I
To
left.
try to tear it down.
No, just the anger
Okay.
at the way that we were treated.
Yeah.
I like to say today that there's a reason why so many of the people out here in the community that are doing the sort of things that I am, and I'm sure I'm not going to name them all, but Eugene Youngblood, David Heppard, Kyle Johnson, me, and the list goes on. I just can't think of any more off the top, and I don't need to exclude or overlook anybody in my community because I love and appreciate all of you. They kept us in the hole for years.
Mm.
And that's because we had a strength that they felt threatened by. And we did not have the tools in order to really use that. Like I'm an abolitionist. the CPM at Twin Rivers unit, this Leslie O'Connor, I was approved to go into this Concerned Lifers organization weekly meeting or twice monthly meeting or whatever. And I was going to explain to them, I was going to talk to them about what it really means to be an abolitionist, because being an abolitionist means that I want to tear down the system. I want the system that we have in place gone today. Okay. But it's not a space for aggression. It is a space for thinking and thoughtfulness.
Well, it basically, you're taking what you did in your life to strip it bare and build it back up the way you did that with your life, and you want to do that to the system,
right? And
heal the system.
Well, no, you can't
No?
you can't heal this. Look, this system is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Okay.
It was and originally American prison. Do you remember I've got another book for you. It gives for me, one of the most concise histories of like the carceral space in America. You know, in the North, we had penitentiaries, which was about penitents, but in the South, they had work gangs.
Yep.
And we know that the Jim Crow era, this was, hey, we're going to still have us some slaves, boys, and we're going to make money off of them. And there was no fingerprints. There was no ID cards. There was no records department keeping track of when they get released, right? There was none of that stuff.
Right.
Because they weren't even human, right?
Right.
And we know what won out because it became about the money. And then there was a development of strategies to get the money. You know, so the carceral space in our country and the legal system that's in place, it's working precisely how it was intended to. And now today, it isn't just targeting communities of color. It is also about economics. It's about people who lack the funds for really good attorneys, who prosecutors know are going to put up really good fights. And they're like, okay, yeah, look, okay, all right, we'll give them 3 years, man. I don't want to go through this with you, right? And so, you know, now it's as much about economics and your social, you know, basically your bank account, and with an eroding, you know, lower class and middle class, right? I mean, excuse me, a growing lower class and an eroding middle class, because now you go from either lower class or you have to go to upper middle class. Otherwise, like, you're still in the trenches, right?
The gap is widening.
Right. So it's doing exactly what it was intended to. You know, I believe in the law because the law gave me moral reasoning that I didn't get as a child, because it's beautiful. Like, it's genuinely beautiful. But our Constitution needs to be just torn up, because what we keep trying to do is we keep trying to remold it in order to either make people forget about its origins or to try to make it fit to encompass. But it was designed only for me. It wasn't designed for you. It was middle-aged white men. Okay. We had all the privilege. We had everything was ours. And if you were a person of color, if you were any part Black, definitely if Native Americans, don't even start, right? Like, you had nothing, you were nothing. And we continue to try to amend and append the Constitution and adjust the way that we apply it in order to encompass. But every time we're doing that, we're actually finally acknowledging a way that we have excluded and abused and mistreated a certain group. Like here in Washington State, our state Supreme Court, I forget the name of the case, but they just said, hey, listen, you guys need to, you know, this is unconstitutional. All these convictions that you've given to people that are Native Americans for hunting and fishing, for tribal stuff, that all needs to be vacated. It all needs to be gone. Well, hey, that's fantastic. But, you know, you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. And you wouldn't have been doing it in the first place. What you had back then when these laws were created was, you know, you had like the good old boys. And for them, they didn't see, you know, indigenous people as human. They didn't see indigenous people as having any rights or worth, human value. And they didn't want them hunting the stuff that they wanted to hunt or fishing in the spaces and places they wanted to fish. So they created these laws. How is it that it took so long for our Supreme Court to strike it down? And that's what we do with our Constitution. That's what we do with the legal system. And sometimes is we try to be corrective to encompass. But if every time you do that, all you're doing is acknowledging the enormous hurt that you have caused, right? So the Constitution needs to go, and it needs to be recreated. It needs to be recreated in a thoughtful way that doesn't necessarily use language that specifically applies to everybody that exists today, but that would apply because it would be not general and not generic, but encompassing enough so that anybody who comes after would be included, right? And as it relates to the, you know, being abolitionist, which I got started on, I wanted to go in and explain to them, like, look, being an abolitionist is not about picking up the sword and going to battle. Being abolitionist is about being thoughtful, because I promise you this, if you don't develop systems to put into place to replace, you're making, like, that's an enormous, what we would call in prison, a mismove.
Well,
like, that's one of the most foolish things to try to do. And there are always the need for, for fighters, but today we have to fight with our minds, not with our fists. There is no place and space for that.
I have a good question. So you have this, the idea of what a productive, effective prison system would look like.
What if we treated people like they were
reincarceration?
What if we treated people like they were socially ill?
Yes, like
What
with a plan to rehabilitate.
Well, so now, and as our state Supreme Court told my friend Kamani Carter, or setting in the Kamani Carter decision a couple of years ago, sometimes it's not about rehabilitating, sometimes it's about habilitating.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Great, I love that.
That's certainly my story.
Do you have an idea, or is there a model in your mind that already exists?
Yes, and it's not one that escapes the need for there to be something that resembles a consequence, okay? But a consequence is not always about how much brutality you can inflict.
Right, now that's discipline. Consequence is, how do you own your mistake? How do you look at it and go, this is what I wish I would have done differently, or I don't know what I would have done differently because I've never seen it modeled for me. So now I want it modeled for me so I can learn the right way. This is consequence.
Nobody wants to be unhealed. And that's what I say. I say
agree.
People don't change, people heal.
That's why I was just doing a live before you got here, talking about discipline versus consequence.
Yeah.
I don't talk about discipline in this house. It's all consequence. Do you want a consequence? There's a consequence or a reward for what you're about to do. Think about because it's your choice. Do you want a consequence or a reward?
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. I love that.
I'll tell you, one of the first steps for me, deunionize correctional officers who boots on the ground. And the reason why is it offers them a level of protection that allows them to be malignant and awful. I cannot
beat the prisoners. It allows them to get away with it.
To be fair, in this case, those officers are on leave, and the union did not fight. Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
And the union did not fight about it. But I can't tell you how many times me and all the people listening to this who've been in prison have heard, particularly here in Washington, officers tell someone, I don't give a F what the superintendent says. I don't give a F what headquarters says. You're going to do what I'm saying right now, or I'm going to put you the F in the hole. And that is genuine. Like, that's real. And like, it doesn't matter. You could be like, man, it's right there on the kiosk that you can't do this. Because it's a CE prisons, it's a kiosk. You put your hand in because it has been set to scan your hand. Then it'll open up so you can check your account stuff, get messages and stuff. And they would periodically send out messages from the upper level administrations or even from headquarters and clarifying things and saying, hey, like, look, this is how this works or whatever. And they don't care. And that's because the union has got their back. And you see a very different level of behavior as soon as somebody goes past CC3, which is like the Correctional Classification Counselor 3. I don't know why they call them counselors. They don't counsel. That is not what they do. And then once you're out of the union, you see a very different type of behavior because what did you just say? Because you didn't know the associate superintendent or something was around the corner or whatever. Like but as long as you're in union. So the union has to go. And then I also believe we need to have meaningful hiring process. Like John Padilla was fired from the police department for hiding evidence. Okay. I can't remember. There's a strip club. There's this woman murdered. And when he was getting divorced from his ex-wife, who he had domestic violence against, had been stalking, I know, and was hired into the Department of Corrections.
You say I know, like I wasn't expecting that from a police officer.
Right.
Honestly, that's so common.
So
the more I do like research and stuff on
he had the DNA results on this murder case of this woman at this adult dance club. I don't even remember the name of it, which is owned up in Snohomish County, but kind of like a local crime family or whatever, And there's newspaper articles on this now. You can 100%, we can find it. I'm not making this up. And the test results were negative, right? So he's like, oh, I just forgot that I had them. And I remember reading through this, like, well, because the Department of Corrections was asked, like, why would you hire this guy? I was like, well, what reason would he have that? Well, I can tell you exactly why he had the DNA results. He was being paid off. And if those DNA results got turned in and it showed that they were negative, that they didn't, whoever they were trying to protect was free and clear, he'd have been told to screw off. So he had to keep those DNA results. He had to keep them hidden because that was his leverage. The guy was a crook, and he was a woman beater and a stalker. And
would so none of that would have shown up on a background check?
no,
Don't they do background checks?
The Department of Corrections knew this when they hired him.
They knew it. Oh God.
Yes. So we need hiring. And then ultimately he rose to associate superintendent, where guess what? He was the person who got to decide whether or not people got what's called extended family visits, which are called trailer visits. It could be with your wife, or most often with like your mom and your father and children and stuff like that. And if you have DV indicators, you would be denied. The guy, I mean, I guess the guy
accused of DV
is
not
convicted. No. Oh wait, and I think he might have got diversion on one. But whatever the case, like certainly he knew, right? He would know. So we need hiring practices.
Yeah.
And we need to offer
not just for corrections, but I think police officers need that too.
My gripe with police is they're almost 90+% ex-military. And I don't have anything against that.
Right.
I respect my co-director is a two-tour combat vet.
But you know what they don't give vets enough is PTSD counseling.
Well, first of all, yes, 100%, 100%. But also they bring back a training model where, again, like we were combatants.
Yes.
If you're not on this side, you're a potential combatant. And I don't, when I was a kid, there were neighborhood police officers who knew us, right? I don't want my police, they're mine. I'm here now. I'm a taxpayer. They're mine, being of the military mindset every time they're looking at
threat.
Every time they're looking at someone. But back to the abolitionist thing, we need to put a model in place where we treat people as if they're socially ill, as if they need care, if they need exposure and conditioning and experiences. Because you know something? Some people like myself, I learned imagination almost on accident. It was that seed that got planted. And attorney Amanda Dubois, her and I intersected. She's founder of Civil Survival. I don't know.
No, I haven't heard of it, but I love that you're dropping all these nuggets.
We got connected. We had an hour-long phone call. And she says at the very end of it, last minute, that minute warning, I'm like, but okay, Amanda, like, what do we do? And she says, Jacob, I don't know. You have to figure that out from in there. And the light bulb went off because for me, I was like, gosh, we sit around in here and we're always waiting for somebody else to wipe our butt. We're waiting for the legislature to pass something. We're hoping that this will happen or hoping this will happen. Hey, guess what? We created some of the most sophisticated criminal organizations in the world from inside prisons in this country and inside the hole, like at Pelican Bay. Don't tell me that we can't sit here and develop strategies to see people released from prison on a trajectory to succeed. Round balls don't make it out of the park. And so when I embraced that idea and I started thinking about, hey, wait a second, what can we do? And that's when we started getting momentum. My team and I, my colleague and friend, Youssef Reeder.
How effective do you think you'll be knowing you're going up against like a machine, a money
it's never gonna happen.
machine?
Oh yeah, listen. So sometimes we just stand in the face of the avalanche because we know we're standing where we have to stand.
Yeah.
And
for your own,
so
this
that
is what I'm meant to do.
Right. There isn't going to be
there isn't
going to be large systemic change.
Yeah.
Nobody is ever going to direct the money towards it. The industries that are supported by it, for instance, very influential, the Teamsters, which happens to be the union that represents correctional officers, wildly influential. And then, of course, all of the other unions behind that, and all the unions together, you can believe that's very, very much an enormous influence. So we're not going to see large scale systemic change because for some people,
the money talks.
It's just not going to happen. Oh, and people make it into a partisan. I hear a lot of people making it into a partisan politics thing. All the Republicans this. And first of all, I think
humanity is not partisan.
I think that partisan politics are obviously a failure. I don't like them. It's never been used for a population this size, and it's clearly not working because we're so polarized. But it's not a Republican thing. Democrats have had a majority in Washington state, I believe, since 2016. And they have a serious majority in the Senate and the House now. And we still continue to have a Democratic governor. So the truth is they can pass whatever laws they want. Did you know that under the Clinton administration, a prison a week was being built in this country?
No,
right.
I didn't.
Yeah. So it's not about partisan politics, and they are never going to invest the money. So for me, saving one life at a time or a small handful.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're doing more than one, I'm sure.
Getting a law changed, somehow, some way.
And listen, as you probably already also learned, that you could sit be in four walls and feel like you're in prison, but you can release your mind from the prison.
Books. I've
Yeah.
read thousands of books.
Oh,
I started reading.
that's how I started reading so many, because I sitting in there just reading 11 books I read.
I started reading like the little children's books. Bill would lock me in my room, and they were like, 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and
Cool.
and they were like they were books, but they were for kids.
Yeah.
And to this day, right now, I'll show you. We're gonna settings. My Kindle app is always open. I don't even
That's
close
cool.
it.
I listen to books because I can multitask.
I can't. I'm a visual, and
I
I'm
get it.
always taking in so much visual. Like if I'm
Oh
driving,
yeah, you got to focus.
yeah, I can't hear it. But
Um,
the truth is, and you know what? I guess to summarize everything is Christina and we used to talk about how do you heal in a place. How do you heal from trauma when you're constantly incurring trauma?
yeah.
Right? I mean, like that is really a good question. And the answer is you learn to process trauma, because the thing is, we are always going to have. I had a
Does that
traumatic.
take the process of unlearning some things so that you can relearn things? Or can you actively learn how to process trauma when you're still incurring trauma?
I mean, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Tell me how you did that.
By being aware and understanding that what does a traumatic event look like? What does it look like when somebody isn't thoughtful towards you? Okay, well, you know something? That is genuinely a part of life. How do I process? How do I not
How do you
take
not
this?
pull down everything?
And how do I
and
not take
sabotage?
this deeply? You heal from trauma while incurring trauma by coming to understand that trauma doesn't always have to be something that cuts you so deep that it touches your spirit.
Okay.
And that's not that
you
things,
keep trauma at an arm's length?
or you process it, right? It's
Process
about
it.
developing emotional intelligence, right?
Okay.
And which is kind of a paradox. It's a bit of a misnomer, because emotions are very much not intelligent. Like they're,
yeah.
right.
And they're right here.
Yeah.
They're not here.
But to me, it's like kind of intellectualizing the emotion
okay.
and the
you
experience.
Compartmentalize.
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. Listen, when I was a kid.
Everybody has to, though.
When I was a kid, I started putting things in a box inside of my head. I can't
Yeah.
believe I'm saying that. I've only literally, I think, told one person, Kareen. But like I would put memories inside of this box and I would close it. And when I put something else in, I imagined myself absolutely not looking in, just looking the lid, putting it in.
Yeah.
So
I talk about that like, you remember how the TVs, you have to turn the knob,
Yep.
turn the channel?
absolutely
You
do.
watch one channel at a time. I'm not watching that channel. I'm watching this one. Right
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we need to learn how to heal, and we need to provide that opportunity. Right now, the people that I know that are doing the things that I'm doing, that have come as far as I have come, who have come as far as you have come, did so in spite of what they were exposed and subjected to, and not because of it. People in prison, people who are cycling through county jails, who are have addiction issues, who are in this horrible cycle of life where, God, they just keep kind of hoping that this wheel will break and maybe shoot them on a trajectory to where they have sustainability and housing and enough money for food. And like, we need to provide the help to heal. And helping does heal. I actually have that t-shirt. That's something I used to say when I was in prison. I had the t-shirt made when I came home. And so for me, if I'm going to leave one thing with people, it's please, 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 not only work on your own healing, not only seek that opportunity, but also please, please, like, raise your voice. Like, if we do not start helping people heal past their experiences, we need to also stop expecting them to behave and to live in a way that is beyond what this experience is.
And the first step at that is making people feel human again, right? Bringing back some dignity, believing in them. What would you say? When you're working with somebody, I'll just ask it this way. So like with the last person that you helped, what was his name again? I'm sorry.
Talking about JP?
JP.
James?
Yeah.
So, and I want to emphasize, like, I guess what we did with him was also what we would do to help, like, somebody.
What's the perfect
Like,
model of what you do?
Well, there is no perfect model.
Yeah, okay.
Right. See, and that's the thing. That's where the Department of Corrections
Individualized.
cannot help a person return to the community. They
Yeah,
can leave a trail of
they
breadcrumb
don't.
from the office to the community.
Yeah.
They cannot leave one from that cell to the community. And that may be 100 feet away, but it is light years apart exponentially. JP came home.
Were you talking to him? Obviously you were before he got
Absolutely.
out.
I mean, I went
But
down and met with the prosecutor and his review
how
team
long?
twice. Well, so
Before he
since
got out?
almost when I got out. So I was only released October 20th, 2023.
Okay.
I've only been out with 28, 29 months, something like that. It feels like forever, but I guess it also
That's
feels like
2
it
years,
just
a little over 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, talking with JP, one of the things that I encourage while the person's inside, I like to work with people who have served a long time, because everything about being released from prison, when we talk about it, let's put this in context. It is about being afraid, varying levels and degrees. But what I work with people to do is try to develop the anxiety and confidence both into manageable, but also healthy balance. If you're too confident about getting out,
Yeah.
a lot of times you're just
Fall
going to
flat on your face.
and right back inside. And if you're too afraid, the same thing happens.
Yeah.
And so one of the
Because
things
you're sabotaging your
out of fear, because when we're afraid, we tend to act
Pull everything
impulsively. Exactly. Right. Or whatever our fear response is. Right. Like, so my trauma response is an aggressive one, and which typically means that I engage, like what happened with the guy on the ferry. People are coming out. Right. Yeah. And so what I do is I actually talk to them, and most of the guys and gals. I mean, I haven't done a lot of work with women, although we've picked up women from women's prison, made sure they got a home in Oregon.
Are there women on your team that work with women?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, I don't have very much prison experience, but I do have my 90 days in jail, and I can empathize
Well, mostly
with
it's
people
about just being humane.
being humane. Yeah.
It is really about being humane.
But I also know that, like Christine Moreland and yeah.
I still never, her and
I
I
just
messaged once upon a time, like for a year, about getting together for coffee. Because
she's such a good
I know
connector too.
Well, and
so
see,
to
and that's another
people that
thing.
have been through that experience, that can and are living thriving lives, could we could probably put a whole volunteer of women together too.
Look, and that's one of the things I'm a big believer in is making sure that relationship connections happen, because
that's the most important.
Yeah, it really is. So what I talk to them about is, and I'm like, okay, so laying concrete block, right? Like, they do all this very careful measurement, and when they first put that very first one in place, because if it's just like 1/100th of an inch off, when you get 30 feet down there, or 40 feet or 100 feet, like it's going to be way off,
you're
right?
way off, yeah.
So that's what inside of the person's mind is like when we're incarcerated, because the entire world still exists. Every place we ever been, whether it's changed or something else is there, but like all of those things, gas stations, like all of these things still exist, but they exist in this space, right? Because we're in this very sterile environment where we don't get a lot of input, a lot of sensory stimulation, and it's very easy for that landscape to become skewed. For it to become warped, and for that just if you start this train of thinking and it's just a little bit off, and you may not realize it, by the time you get over here, like you're in complete panic mode. And so I really talk with guys using that as sort of an illustration for them, and talking about like, listen, the reason our frontal lobe isn't our friend, right? There's a reason why we say it's never as bad as you imagined it was going to be. And that's because our imagination takes us to our very worst fear. It's out to screw us and make us all panic.
Or you can use your imagination to think positively.
You're absolutely right.
Dream big and all those good things.
But in this, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But in this context, it's not our friend.
Yeah, I get it.
And it's to just be aware. And it's like, okay, listen, now look, let's bring this back. Let's talk about all these other people that we know. Let's discuss, like, my friend Kyle, he was so caught up before he got out of all these things that his probation officer was going to want, all of this long litany of stuff. Like he was convinced that all of this was going to be overbearing. And I was like, listen, brother, listen to me, please. A month after you get out, man, they're going to know that you can go in the category of, I don't have to pay this guy any attention. And that's exactly what your life's going to look like. He's driving over the road truck right now all over the country. They know that Kyle is not one of the people that they need to monitor. And so helping people, and by also giving them case examples and specifics, but it comes from the ability to connect, really.
Yes. And that, like I was saying, the very first step is just allowing someone to find their dignity and believe in themselves that they can do it. Like, even if it was a long list that their probation was going to have to, or parole want, it's kind of like, looking at massive amounts of debt. How am I ever going to pay this off? Well, one little check at a time.
But and me and JP were
It's
just
going
talking
to
about this.
happen,
It's
though.
time management out here kills us
Mhm.
because like inside, we knew that movement was going to happen approximately at 12:30.
Mhm.
And my call out in the library is at 12:30. And we know that movement back is going to be approximately at 1:20.
Mhm.
And if I walk fast enough, I can get to my room, get changed into my gym shorts or whatever. And then at 1:30, the movement will be to the yard.
Mhm.
Like we knew how to manage all of that, right?
Sure.
And so inside,
I wish I was that disciplined out
well,
here.
it doesn't exist out here. I'm chronically late because I have no way to estimate
Right.
what it takes to do things.
Well, you have to be the set of your own schedule then.
But I don't know how to estimate how long it will. I'll tell someone, oh, listen, yeah, I'll be there in like 45 minutes.
It's just like debt. You
Mm.
take your debt and you work your way backwards. How long is it going to take me and how much do I have to do each month? It's the same thing. But you have to, it's almost like, okay, if I were like an assistant, right? And I'm setting my manager's schedule and I'm, and here's this, you have to do it for yourself. You set your schedule. These are the things I'm expected to do, time blocking, right? And yeah, I mean, and that is a part also, at least this is how I experience it, because I find that my self-confidence and my self-worth are based off of these little itty bitty steps that I take and goals that I accomplish. It might be I need to drink an extra glass of water today because I don't drink enough water in the day. I did it.
Coffee's not enough.
Oh no. Listen, I landed in the hospital because I was not drinking enough water and I thought, why do I have this massive headache? It's because I wasn't drinking enough water.
And then it just sucked down you put electrolytes in coffee. Don't worry about it. Take
Same
coffee
way with
seriously.
sleep, and
I
it's
take
the same
coffee
way.
seriously.
Yeah, well, so do I. Trust me, you see it. But yeah, like that's another thing that if we can train, not train, but I guess educate
and expose, right? Give opportunities. But we also have to give people opportunities to actually
to learn how to do these for themselves.
Yeah.
And see,
that's one of the problems with our system too.
Right.
Is we don't actually. They'll run somebody through some absurd reentry class, and their class sizes and class frequency don't begin to measure against the number of people being released. And then we have these ideas because people say, well, no, they do this in this stage. Yeah, well, listen, no, they didn't. For instance, you're not supposed to be able to go on graduated reentry without a cell phone. I've had DOC officers, I was originally contacted by attorney named Lila Silverside. She's the attorney who got the death penalty struck down in Washington. She's absolutely amazing human. And she asked me if I could render some assistance to an old client of hers who was releasing. I said, you bet. You're talking to the right guys. So I was taking him a cell phone, but because he was on blackout period at this transitional house, I reached out to the CCO and said, hey, listen, I just need clearance to do this. This is who I am. This is my company. And the CCO, I believe it was a lady. Yes, like, yeah, that's fine. And like 20 minutes later, I get a call from the number. I'm like, well, what's going on? It's like, hey, listen, can you do the same thing for somebody who's at another transition house? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, sure. Well, clearly she doesn't understand that I'm paying for this out of my pocket. And I'm not just going to take them a cell phone, right? They give those guys sliced bread, cold cuts, mustard, and water and say, listen, you'll have to make do until you can go get your food benefits, right? I'd take them some frozen pizzas and some orange juice and some milk, right? Because there are just some things like you just really want when you're coming out.
Yeah.
And popcorn and chips and just had to do that because I know. So I think that putting people who have been a part of the problem close to the people who need help finding their way out of it. We have to create that opportunity for the person to on that spiral that they've been in, this cycle, to be able to say, okay, bam, now that's where it breaks, and have that person actually leave that space on a trajectory that gets them out of the park.
Yeah.
Ground balls.
And are
don't
you
make it out of the
helping?
park.
Are you doing like conflict resolution and mindset?
I punch people.
Pillows.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But like, are you like helping them with the tools to get themselves out of the mindset that they are
not currently in custody?
Surviving? Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
On their way out.
Actually, no. One of the spaces that we're looking at moving into right now.
Because if anybody's learned that, it's you, and you can speak from experience.
Yeah. So we're looking at trying to get into the space working with JRAs, 18 to 24-year-olds, and maybe even going into like Green Hill and other youth facilities.
Good. Get them young.
Because the peer-based reentry program that I built when I went back to prison with my friend Yusuf Jihadi, his name's now Yusuf Reader, and my other friend Mark Falls. Yusuf and I we had a REACH is an acronym, Reentry Empowerment and Community Health, and it was peer-based. During COVID, we provided the only assistance in our prison, and did so even though the administration had told me we had to stop. And I basically said, no, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do that. And we just kept doing what we were doing. So with that said,
Well, you know what? Okay.
like-
No, it's all good. It's all good
What was the
because
question?
the question is, do you have
Oh.
a program that helps
we have a
people with
REACH
tools?
We have a REACH skills class, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that is the pre-release. And I'm like, gosh, we could make just a little bit of adjustments to this.
Is it like role play based, or it's not book based, right?
Well, no, it's interactive. It's us.
Thank you.
It's
Interactive.
us talking and working with each other.
Okay.
And it's also bringing people in like, hey, listen, you considering post-secondary education? Well, hey, look, let me bring this person who, like Ben Brocky, who's graduating 9 days, 11 days after he got out, serving over 20 years in prison. He enrolled in the University of Washington as a double major. And he graduates in two and a half months. Oh yeah, listen, if you want to talk to a rock star, you should be talking to Ben. A lot more eloquent, a lot more organized. He's not anywhere near as discursive in his mind. But we can bring somebody like Ben in to talk to them, somebody that they know, like, wow, like, look, he lived through the experience that he's trying to help me avoid.
Yeah.
And like, how do we get people into a place where they get to experience or to see? Because you have to be able to imagine yourself being something that you're not. Because if you can't imagine that, and if you can, on some
mentorship,
level, like really imagine it in this very distant way. But if you can't see yourself, like if it seems impossible that you could be living that way.
Well, maybe the phrase too, and this has really been a phrase that I've used in myself for my own decision making and my own, what do you want to, dreaming, goal setting, is if that person can do it, I can do it.
Yep.
If he can do it, I can do it.
Yep.
If your friend who and 9 days after he got and went to UW, if he can do it, I can do it. And literally using that phrase.
I love the phrase and I love the concept, but I tried going to college when I got out, and
but I'm not saying that everybody should go to UW, but if there's somebody, when I was going to AA, one of the first things that people said is find someone who has the life that you want to live and then just start doing everything they do.
Yeah.
Now, it might be right. If it might be you that they want to emulate, and they say, if he can do it, I can do it. Or maybe it's someone who's gone on to do whatever. But if they see themselves and that's what they want, if they can do it, you can do it.
Can I, I'm going to end on a positive note, even though I have,
you have something negative to say?
I will say this, and, we'll be more, my team and I and some other people will be, going very public with it later. Our plan is to completely go live on social media, but it's important to remember that there are system bad actors who will never, ever be willing to relinquish what they want to as their hold over us, that they will, because of their conditioning, because of who they are inherently, and the fact that they reject the personal growth to actually be humane, they will in fact do things to harm us out here. And I say that because last month, a career DOC staff member completely misrepresented, in fact, I would say lied to a state agency, to a person that was very happy to hear it, I would add. And it cost my company our contract that was set for the remainder of the fiscal year, which was $220,000. That was our ability to launch a trucking company, because my plan is to bring people out of confinement and get them their
jobs.
CDLs and get them their 90 days training. And if we have a job, we give it to them. And if not, once they've got that 9 days training,
they can go anywhere.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to build something that doesn't hinge on grants or funding from the legislature, et cetera, that's been hamstrung. Truth of the matter is, we don't have savings. And we don't have savings because anything that looks like profits, we pour back into helping people. We get a call from a guy whose car broke down. He's just got in the laborers union, And it's $947 and some change, $948. It's like, well, you can't be in the union. You can't be in the laborers union if you're not mobile, if you don't have a car. I'm a for-profit company. I don't have to ask a board of directors. I'm not a state agency where I have to sit here and make sure that all the red tape is being followed, because by then he hasn't been to work for 2 weeks. But it's like, gosh, you have to be patient. I can't be patient, right? I just say, yeah, no, put the person on the phone, put them on the phone with me right now. I'm going to pay it. And so we don't have savings. And what they did to us, what the DOC staff member did and the person at the state agency, is to be expected. There are people who will smile in your face and tell you that they see you, see me, not as a product of who I was. In fact, I'll just tell you, somebody from DOC, you know what spice is? Synthetic cannabis. So they test male for that, like a preliminary test, but we all know those things are crazy unreliable. And especially for spice, if you Google it, it's up to 80% unreliable. And just for the record, the mail that I sent in that did test for positive for spice, it's come back from the laboratory. It was negative.
So they lied.
Oh, she most definitely lied.
Yeah.
Because she called her contact at the state agency, who could not wait to hear that I could no longer come into DOC facilities because I had been caught smuggling, because the person at DOC handles this memorandum of understanding with the state agency. I couldn't come into the facilities under the MOU because I'd been caught mailing drugs into somebody in prison using that state agency's letterhead. Completely absurd. But and again, to his credit, a big shout out to the new Secretary of the Department of Corrections, Tim Lang. He is an honorable man, and he's very thoughtful. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for him and for the culture he would like to see.
He's up against the.
Oh, he did the right thing. He stood up for me. Oh yeah, he stood up for me. It's important for all of the people who are on my side of the carceral space, even once we're out here, the people, the system bad actors that still have power, that still have influence, that still have ability, will try to reach into our lives. They will try to derail it, because for them, we will never be anything except for that rotten convict who must be trying to get over. And then there's the people out here who will represent that they see you as more than those things, just that fast will believe. And the irony of it is, like, if one of their staff, if they gotten a call that one of their staff had sent in some sort of mail that had tested positive for synthetic cannabis, they'd have like, wait, what? Hold on, no, that can't be. And then maybe they would have Googled it and saw how wildly unreliable. Maybe they would even found that Tim Lang was lead counsel when he was in the Attorney General's office about the lawsuit against DOC for using those false positives or those preliminaries to punish people, which they've stopped doing now because of the lawsuit. But because of my history, I must have done this. And so there are lessons, there are genuine lessons in there. And that is that just because somebody behaves badly doesn't make us bad.
Okay, which leads me to my last question, okay? Because I've been dying to ask you this, and I'm just curious to know your answer. Do you feel like, or do you believe that everyone that's incarcerated is rehabilitable? Is that a right word?
Yes,
Can
but
they
that doesn't
rehabilitate
probably, unless they're
in the right environment?
Whatever their mental disorder, they may have a mental disorder that makes them that casts them into a space where you could never actually safely have them back in the community. Are you asking me in some way, do I think that everybody who's in prison could be rehabilitated and returned to the community? The answer is unequivocally no.
No. Okay.
Absolutely not. I don't want anybody in the community that I'm not confident my daughter could be safe standing next to in a store.
Thank you.
I advocate for people to come home and fight for them to come home when I know, and not the kind
And
of.
that takes a lot of time, a lot of trust building. You're getting
our
them
community.
CDL licenses and they're out on the road. And
So look, we see it over and over again in prison where an administrator is bamboozled by somebody who we know is having an affair with staff or doing drugs, selling drugs, smuggling drugs, but they think this person is just like the bee's knees, like the best of it all. And we're all sitting there and watching it. That's why we don't participate in that program. We have no respect for it because we know.
That's why it's good that we know with the experience on both sides now can really be a good judge of character.
Well, and I've been gone long enough now that I don't have my pulse on the moment to moment experiences. But what I do is I talk to the people that are there, and I make sure that I'm listening in a way that I don't have like judgments, or I haven't gotten to conclusions necessarily based on my experience. I'm open to hearing that something else is going on.
Yeah, that's
So,
good. That's really good. Okay, my last question then. So if you were gone tomorrow and you would want to give a message of your life or something that you've learned or some advice that you want, what would be that message for the world or even for that one person that needs to hear it?
that they should, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how hopeless and pointless it seems, that they should direct and devote their focus on learning to love and not wasting away in hate.
Well, love conquers hate. You just have to let
Love
it.
will also give a sense of fulfillment, regardless of where you're at.
Yeah, so good. I love that. We could go on for so many more hours.
Yeah, but we'd have to start talking about your story because
I
I
know.
want to know your story. And
Oh,
that's
my
the
story
thing.
takes 5 hours long to tell.
Okay.
But definitely it will be told. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Been trying to figure out when and how I want to tell it, you know? Should it be on somebody else's podcast or should it be on mine? So I'm trying to figure out when.
Can I offer some advice on that? First of all,
Yeah.
celebrate yourself, because a lot of times we don't understand what it means to be celebrated because we haven't seen it. So make sure that you see it. Celebrate yourself. We see you. Okay. I don't think that you should tell your story on somebody else's podcast because you have built this. You have fought for this. You've struggled for this. You've lost sleep over it. You've decided not to go to dinner parties because you were going to focus and work on something. Whatever it is, you've given things away because you have been working on so many levels to build yourself. And I'm not talking about to sell yourself to the community or anything, but so that you can internalize the strength that you have. And I, again, don't give that away. So that would be my advice. No way. Now, maybe what you do is like you work with
Take it on the
somebody.
road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'll tell my story here in parts because it's going to be so long. But
Why don't you have like somebody close to you, like Christine, like like interview you on your own podcast where your story is getting told.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want it to be a monologue, you want it to be a dialogue. And if you're talking to the camera, telling the story, it's probably gonna be a little bit less engaging.
Yeah.
And
I don't want it. I like a conversation better than just talking into a camera.
yeah,
It doesn't feel natural to
it
me.
doesn't. Well, I really
Yeah.
appreciate you inviting me and making room in your world to, I guess, hopefully.
Oh, you have such a good message. Your life is the message. It's so good. So many people can learn so many different things that I've heard, not just today, but in other places you've told your story. And that's why I was so touched by it.
My life feels like an albatross.
I bet. It's so important, though, that we share because we didn't just go through that for no reason, you know? It's meant to be told so that it can help somebody else.
I get asked more often than I would like if you could change it, if you could have not done this or if this or if that. I want to say that I hope that if I had the ability to change the way my life was lived, that I would have the courage to say what I mean right now, to do what I'm saying right now because I mean it. The answer is no. I would suffer every one of those experiences because I don't know that I would be who I am today. And I don't know that I would be positioned to have any influence or impact that might actually help others. And I also don't know that somebody would have worked so hard to get Kyle out of prison. So that somebody would have cared enough to make sure that the right people were present to get my friend Sterling resentenced out of a life sentence. And for me, with the love that I have for people whose lives I've touched, and honestly, like I don't keep track of like where I touch lives or who I help or whatever that word looks like because I do it.
You don't do it for that.
No.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be sure that I would be who I am today. And I also couldn't be sure that all of the people who needed me to cross their path just as I needed them would have somebody else similarly cross their path. So I would hope that I have the courage to.
You know where I see this going? So when I got sober and I was starting to building my life from scratch, I had certain people who helped me along the way. And every time they helped me, I'm like, you're helping me. And even just with going to the dollar store, right, and getting me some utensils to fill my cupboards with things like a can opener I needed to open the cans that I got from the food bank. These things were major things. How are you going to eat food out of a can if you don't have a can opener, right? This was a big thing to me. And I would say, and then I have my friend Tiffany from my AA group, she helped me move a bed into this apartment that was now, that I had all the
That
little
somebody
things.
would help
That
that
they
much.
helped me.
It was
Yes.
like it was
a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
you're helping me. And she's like, yeah, but this is what we do for each other in this group. And
That's
and
what
you
you
know what
do
she
with-
said to me?
when you're living and not surviving.
Right. But you know what she said to me? And it's made a huge impact. And she said, I'm doing this for you because somebody did it for me. And now you're going to do this for someone else when they need it. And they're going to do it for someone else when they need it. And this is where I see you.
That's also what I
You
tell
are
people
building
all the
a
time.
team of pay it forward.
I tell people, like, listen, no, you can't. You don't need to say anything about giving anything back. You don't need to be super thankful. Like,
Or just do it for somebody else.
just do something for someone else.
Yeah.
when
And
you
then
see they need it.
tell them the
But
same thing.
one of the most important things is actually seeing when people need help,
Yeah.
because a lot of us are cruising through life and we're not seeing each
it.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just takes one little thing that you can do for someone else that for you, it's probably not, doesn't seem like it's a very big deal, but it's to them, it's everything.
I've been there.
Yeah.
People don't rob banks unless you're desperate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been in all those places.
We never even talked about you robbing banks and that whole thing.
Oh, honestly,
But that was the reason why you were incarcerated, right?
Yeah,
The
I
long
mean,
term.
yes, a number of robberies. And that, what, I feel bad because I didn't talk about Gwen, but I had one of my pivotal life moments from a woman who was in a bank I robbed in 1990 in Wood. She came to my sentencing. She turned her victim impact statement the day prior. It was in May of 2001. And at sentencing, when she spoke, she had asked for an in-person meeting with me too, and I had agreed. But at sentencing, when she spoke to the judge, she didn't say, hey, listen, grind this guy out, kill him, destroy him. None of these things. What she said was that for a long time, I had become the master of her nightmares because I had stolen her sense of safety. And before that day and since that day, I have never cried as deeply and as genuinely as and sincerely, because it had never occurred to me that anybody in this world felt safe. Never, ever crossed my mind. It just did not. And
because of the actions
Like
of
the life-
robbing the bank, now she felt unsafe.
yes.
And you didn't realize that.
I held a sawed-off shotgun to her head in the vault, and she crumbled to the ground crying. And I wanted to tell her. I
Have
said,
you
"I'm not gonna hurt."
ever,
We're friends today.
okay, that's what I was wondering.
She reached out to me a few years ago on social media before I got out.
I bet she's so proud.
She
of
is
you.
one of the people in this world that I trust unequivocally.
And she trusts you because of the way you have almost like, when I heard you say that in the other podcast, that's what touched me so deeply, because it takes a lot of self-awareness to realize how deeply that can affect someone else.
Yeah, well,
It's amazing.
I know I care about people. It makes me it's a weakness, but it's also strength.
I don't know if that's a weakness. It's and I don't even think that when someone takes advantage of the fact that you care about someone and they would take advantage of you for that it's even it's still not a weakness.
You're right.
It's
And
a strength.
what I would tell
Because
somebody,
you have something they don't have, and that is that you care.
Thank you.
Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you for creating a place and a space for me and for everybody else.
If today's story moved or inspired you, please take a moment to share this episode with someone who needs a spark of courage. Your 5-star rating and short review help these brave, courageous, and resolutely fearless stories reach even more hearts. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an episode of Intrepid Storytelling. Thanks for listening.